So I have an announcement to do, but not for the first row, but for people. I need all the people of the school, but we need all the people of the school wearing black on Friday. This next Friday will be the Black Friday of the school. So we need that, and you will build the wall. That's all. This is my announcement. Please come on black. So first, so now I start my lecture. So, and thank you, Eric, thank you a lot, because I don't know if I am a revolutionary, and I don't know if I answer to Le Corbusier. Because for me, I was educated at the beginning thinking that Le Corbusier is a little bit doctrinaire, you know. So, okay. And I'm very glad to be here, because I came for the first time here, but not here in this building, in the other building 10 years ago. And it was exactly 10 years ago, in '96, to give a lecture. So, and you change, you move a lot, and I really like the feeling of this school. And it's always, you are the revolutionary. I'm not. As you are the revolutionary, because you are one of the best schools, and you are where the feeling and the feeling of the students, the work of the students in the more experimental, the more pushing further the ideas, and the question of form, I don't know. The ideas I prefer. So I will start my lecture without too much statement, but one statement is that one. This is my only statement I want to tell you tonight. If you see something, you have to say something. For me, it's absolutely normal. I took this picture in the metro of New York 2 years ago. Because if I see something, I always think that we have to do a statement, to say something, to take a position, to take an attitude about that. But what I don't like is to be suspicious about anything unattended. Because the only thing that I like in the life is unattended. I like to be surprised. I like to discover something. I like to travel and to discover new people, new event, new architecture, everything. So I don't like this, to be suspicious, because I'm absolutely curious about anything unattended. So for me, this is my only statement that I wanted to say tonight. After that, I will show you my project. And first of all, I want you to dream. This is my last building, a boat, a sailing boat. I was asked 3 years ago, I was called 3 years ago by a young client to build a boat and to help him to build this boat. And this boat is a sailing boat of 44 meters long with only one mast, 1,000 square meters of sails. And it's absolutely a dream. You know, when you are an architect and somebody call you for doing that, you say, no, it's not possible, you have to dream, but it's a dream. And at the same time, it helps you, it's asking you to experiment about precision, being rigorous, and to work only in section, because everything is changing all the way the form and the body of the boat is changing. So this is some details of the boat that with the precision that we did. Because at the first meeting, we immediately agreed that this boat has to be flush deck and to be as fluid as possible. This young client, who is 25 years old, wanted to live on this boat alone to compose music. Why not? And or to go with his mother or his little daughter. So he wanted a flexible and fluid space inside, and we did absolutely flexible and fluid space. This is a boat. Not bad. I sailed on it 1 month ago, and believe me, it was a very, very strong experience. It was really, really the best moment of my life as an architect. Because when you build a building, you are always going to the site, and it's always the same space. You know that from the beginning. But this one, I discovered that when you build a boat, it's always packed in everywhere. So you don't see the whole body, you don't see everything, all the space. But when you start to sail with it, when you start to travel with it, it's absolutely fabulous. So it was a very emotional day. With some details, and this fluidity of the floor, of the deck above, as smooth as possible, because you have to have some relief on the top, but we need to have the heat with the floor continuous. And the windows are on the both sides of the deck to just have the light coming on the both sides and inside, and it's where we put also the artificial light. 2 wings, okay. In the night. And this is the space inside. The space inside is, as I told you, absolutely fluid because it's because what I don't like in the boat, usually, this is the little corridors, turning and very narrow, and you have your body compressed inside. So I wanted to open the space inside. So all the furniture, all the cupboard of the boat are inside on the back of the body inside, and all the space is open. Only we have the engine rooms here, the main bedroom here with the bathroom on the back, with the bathtub inside the floor, with the fluidity and sliding partition between. And this is one guest cabin with sliding partition inside this wall. This is the kitchen with sliding partition here inside this wall. Another guest cabin is here. Another one is here. And this is the salon, the living room. And okay. Some images that I took 1.5 months ago. This is the library, the only corridor that I have, with the kitchen on this side, the bar with the partition that can slide in between, the bedroom and the bed with the bathroom on the back, and the wash basin. That's all for the boat. So, you know, this is really, really, I like it. For me, it was holidays to work on that. So I start back 15 years ago when we did this installation in Grenoble in the Contemporary Art Center, an installation to express the way our architecture is playing with the space. So we called it hypertension. Because for us, hypertension is the way you play with compression or dilatation of the space. The way, and we were playing with the ambiguity of being outside, going inside, and when you start to be inside, you don't know if you are already inside or if you are still outside. Because of opening the walls, playing with the ambiguity of sickness and thinness, no, what can we say? And with the thicker wall, which is the cupboard, the lighter one, and the thinner one, which was the steel one, but the heavy one, at the same time, with a ramp here on the left, at the end becoming a mirror inclined in 45 degrees, where the space is upside down in front of you. So we play with that when we did this, a little bit when we did this Banque Populaire de l'Ouest in 90. And with this question of how to make a transition from the outside, which is the countryside, outside the city. In front of this building we have fields and cows and a little river. And inside where people will be working. So in between them we wanted to have a transition, and we have to resolve some technical questions. This facade is facing to the south, and people are working on computer behind. So we need to protect the people from the light, from the heating, because the client didn't want to have air conditioning, because it's outside in the countryside. He wanted to have windows to open and to make people able to open the windows, to look and to have to feel the fresh air. So we need to protect this facade. So we built a structure 2 meters before the glass facade, and this structure, which is seen from far and becomes like a forest of steel when you come nearby, it's a gallery. Because inside this structure we have sunscreens which are going down after actioning a solar cell. A cell, something, a solar cell. Okay, no, sun cell. Yes. Sorry for my English sometimes. Okay, and this is a transition because on the right you are outside the building, and on the left you are inside, and in between you have this gallery, which seems now very thick because it's a space, and this space is increasing the perception of the space inside. Because when you are inside the space, inside the hall, which is not so big because it's only 100 square meters, but very long, it's 50 meters long, the physical limit of the space is the glass, and the visual limit of the space is the structure before. So the space seems to be bigger than it is. And because of the shiny and the soft material everywhere, and the reflection of the structure in the curved wall, the space becomes, the perception and the description of the wall, of the space is quite difficult and ambiguous. And we call that space a dynamic space, because we decided to have the entrance door at one extremity and to have the passage through the wall to the offices on the other extremity, and the people have to walk the 50 meters long. But when you come and you enter the door, you are facing a wall. So you start to turn your body and to do some steps. The first visitors are always doing that, doing 3 steps and stopping, because they discover the length that they have to walk. And after that, they start to walk through all the space. So this space makes you walking by and stopping and moving your body. So it's why we call it the dynamic space. And the other one, which is exactly at the back of the first volume of the bank, is we call it a static space. But it's exactly the same size than the other one. It's 100 square meters, but it's a square and it's a cube. And it's why in this static space, we put the lift to have a vertical promenade. This is that space in between the 2 volumes. In that little social housing building, it's social because it's very low price. We played with this question of having a space inside and outside. In this slide, this panel is perforated and it's just the facade of the staircase. When you go inside the building, you push the door and you enter inside this little hall. It's little because it's a very small building, it's 11 flats, and the space of this hall is 6 or 7 square meters. But it seems to be bigger because of the curve, the mirror at the end, and the glass door to the courtyard. But it's an inside space, because when you open the door, it's an inside, you go inside. But behind this blue column in the middle, you have the beginning of the staircase. And the staircase is going directly behind, up and behind this perforated steel screen. So it's becoming an outside space. So this space is inside, and at the beginning of, and at the and in the same time, the beginning of an outside space. This one is a control center. At the beginning, it was a competition for a motorway control center. And this motorway is from Paris, going from Paris to the west of France. And this bridge is at the moment when the motorway, which is underground and after leaving Paris, is going up to pass over the River Seine. So this is not an horizontal bridge, it's a slopey bridge for 600 meters long. And we have the site for the motorway control center was under the motorway, under the bridge. But it was supposed to be built in the middle of a public park. So this bridge, which is an infrastructure of 3 ways on one side and 4 ways on the other side, is supposed to cross in the middle of a public park. So with children playing balloon, with people relaxing under the motorway bridge. So this is the first problem that we had. And the second one is that we wanted to let and to leave the public park and the view and the people passing under the bridge, which is not so high. So we analyzed the program and discovered that the 2/3 of the program of the building could be underground. So because it is car park, garage, technical rooms, etc., without people working all the day. And only a third part of the program was for offices building, for offices. So we split the program into the one above and the one under. And in between, the space is continuous. The space of the park is continuous. And we proposed to redesign the bridge because this bridge was supposed to be very strong and very heavy in concrete. And we propose to build it in as light as possible for the minimum impact in the park. It's why we have these steel arches with the same distance that it was supposed to have, 35 meters long, and we hang the offices in between the two arches under the span of the motorway. And we split the two parts of the motorway to have the light coming in between to light up the parvis below and to light up the facade for the offices on the both sides. This one is a very low budget project for a university building, two university buildings. One on the left is a Faculty of Economic Sciences, and the other one is a Library of Law. We were supposed to do for the competition, because every public building in France is with competition, so they were supposed to be all together in one building, and we split them because we are in a campus nearby the city center of Nantes in the west of France. And we knew that, we heard that the people of the university didn't want to have a new building in the campus, and especially on this place, because they didn't want to close the way from the center of the campus to the little river nearby, and with a little wood for promenade. And our site was exactly on the way between the center of the campus and the river. So by splitting the buildings in long perpendicular volumes from the river, we let the people passing between the buildings and having the promenade from the campus and it's why we won this competition. But it was a very low budget building. It's why this simplicity of the volume is very important. And we inserted, so because of this low budget, we couldn't play with many things in the spaces, but we played with the promenade and the place to meet for the students. So in this building, which is a faculty, we cut the two volumes and joined them with a diagonal glass volume in the middle between them. And this diagonal glass volume is crossing the two buildings with 3 levels of hall. And between these 3 levels, we have a staircase. And this staircase is a promenade and a place for students to meet. But this staircase is specific because at every level, you have the same space and the same volume. And the staircase seems to be at the same place, but it's not. It's a little bit sliding from one level to the other level. So when you go up from one level to the other level, you leave a space and you arrive in the same space, but not at the same place. So the space and the wall at the back, at the end, is coming through to you as soon as you go up. So you are perceiving the space absolutely differently at every level, even if it's very simple. And in the library, because we wanted to open the library to the faculty, we have a glass facade, and this facade is again facing to the south. So we have to protect it and the library from the sun. So we built this very simple wood screen to make the gallery and to provide shadow for the glass facade. And inside, again, the promenade is a staircase. This staircase is supposed to be enclosed because it's for fire regulation. We have to separate the different levels. But we didn't want to enclose the staircase. We enclosed the arrival of the staircase on the top. So, and we designed the staircase differently on every level. From the ground floor to the first floor, this is a Z structure with a stop in the middle to the mezzanine. And on the mezzanine, we have all the places for students to study and to read just behind the handrails. Because it's an open space, because it's open, the books are free to the books are free on access on every space. And the space, because it's a rectangle, it's the same at every level. So we played again with this question of promenade and perception of space, which is different. So we go up from the ground floor to the first floor through this ovoid volume, which is painted in this green colors. But I call it green because in the first picture it seems to be green, but here this is the same color, it seems to be yellow. And it's a question of the perception of the color, which is not really efficient in this slide, but it is really usually seen as green and this one as yellow. It's depending of the quantity of artificial and natural light on it. When it's more artificial light, it becomes more green, and when it's more natural light, it's perceived as yellow. And this color, because it's very strange color, is coming down a little bit with the artificial light. So you know where is the staircase when you are walking through the bookshelves in the library. And in between the first floor and the second floor, you come in a parallelopipedic volume with the same difference of perception of the color when you mixed the natural and the artificial. So this staircase is on one extremity of the surface of the first floor, and the other one is somewhere here. So when you come from the staircase here and at the extremity of the volume, you see somewhere these colors coming down from the ceiling, and you know where is the staircase. This project was the scenography for the French Pavilion and the Venice Biennale in '96. I show it because it's important with the way we played, and we started to play with oblique surfaces on the floor. This the commissaire the curator of the French Pavilion for this exhibition has titled the exhibition "The Fractured Monolith," because he was explaining that the French architecture, since the beginning, since very long time, and the classical French architecture is a question of monolith. And this monolith is always with an entrance in the middle, with an axe and a symmetry. French architecture is a question of symmetry and monolith. And after the Second World War, because of the Second World War, some architects following mainly Parent and Virilio, working with André Bloch in Architecture d'aujourd'hui, some architects were starting to fracture the monolith. And Parent and Virilio did especially the church of Sainte Bernadette de Nevers, which is a bunker, a fractured bunker, inclined and transformed. So he wanted that we express and we organize the space with this question of fracturing the monolith. And if you look at the plan, it's very, the French Pavilion in the Giardini in Venice is really neoclassical, with an entrance in the middle, a space in the middle, two other spaces equal on both sides, and another one on the back. So to transform the perception of the space, we started by painting in black everything, the floor, the ceiling, and the walls, to make the limit disappearing. And after that, without seeing and looking at the limits of the space, we could reorganize the space itself. So we created a volume in the middle by screen suspended to cables, and this volume is a square, but on the diagonal. So when you were entering in the building, by the door, you were facing the corner of this volume. And you can't go to the middle immediately. You have to walk through this around and to go in between the screens to come in the middle. So the walkway through the volume, through this space, was longer than usually because you couldn't go in the middle. You have to turn around to come inside. And because we had this inclined surface, still with an inclined ramp and the opposite direction, we have to walk everywhere around before going to the middle. So the space, because of the time of the promenade inside, could be perceived as longer than it is or bigger than it is, different, whatever. This was a competition that we did in '98 for the city of Rotterdam. At this moment, the city of Rotterdam was asked to 9 architects to only ask a question. Does the city of Rotterdam has to build a new bridge, a third one? Because the city of Rotterdam has been established since the beginning on the north bank of the river Maas, because on the south it was the harbor. And the harbor, since now 15 or 20 years is going to the ocean. So the space, the free space now from the south is becoming a new city center. And they have to cross and to pass over the river. And because of this distinction between the city center and the harbor, they had only one old bridge in the middle. And they built in 95 the bridge of Ben van Berkel, the Erasmus Bridge, on the west part of the city center. And they had 2 tunnels. So they wanted to connect and to link more the both sides. And we proposed to have the 3rd bridge on the east part of the city center to make a circle and to have a better link between the 2 parts of the city. But at this place, the river was very large because it was 600 meters large, as everywhere it's only 300. But we discovered that on this south part of the river, they had islands because of the docks of the harbor or natural islands, but not at this place. And we proposed not only to build a bridge, but to build an island. And this island could be the new limitation between the public traffic on the river and a more residential and leisuring space on the river on the south. And the city of Rotterdam is building towers on the south bank of the river, but at this moment, at this place, it was already built. So we propose to displace the towers on the island to make it feasible economically. So I heard 2 years after the competition that we won the competition, we were first, and they inserted in their master plan of the development of the city, the bridge at this place, and the proposal for the island. They did the study about what about the traffic, what about the flux of the river, and it was successful, and they said, okay, it's possible. But it's a further proposal for 15 years, so I don't know if it happens at the end. And we split the 2 parts of the bridge. The orange one is the one for the cars and the tramway, with a stop inside this tower as a stop in the middle of the river, and suspending this little bridge, pass rail, for pedestrian and cycling to go to the island. And we have to open the bridge for traffic of the boat, etc., so it has to be studied. This is a very small building in the middle of a huge site in the north of France, and this huge site is from Arcelor. Arcelor, this steel company, and this is one of this huge site of Arcelor to create or to build the steel. So all around the site, the buildings are very huge, absolutely ugly, like big boxes built without architects, painted in strange colors because decided by the wife of the director. Believe me, it's true. And but without, because it's sometimes some buildings of 1 kilometer long, 30 meters high, but without architects, so it's just boxes. And one is painted in Blue Lagoon because the wife was liking the Blue Lagoon, and the other time it was maroon or brown or something like, absolutely something ugly. And when they have to build the little one, an offices building, they ask me to build it as an architect. So this is a offices building in the middle of this site, and I proposed them to build it in steel because this is a big steel company. And they said, no, we want that you build that in concrete. I said, no, it's stupid. You are the steel company. We have to build that in steel. So I fought with them at the beginning to build it in steel. This is very strange for me, this situation. So I proposed them to build that with these structural panels, which are 40 centimeters large and 7 meters high, enough strong to be structurized and to support the floor in the middle and the floor on the top for the terrace, at the rooftop. And these windows are playing with, like in a partition of music, of concrete music, playing with these different panels too. And in the middle, I inserted this glass box to have a hole and to have a volume, an ovoid volume inserted in it. And this ovoid volume is two meeting rooms, one above the others. But it's not exactly the same connection, the same height as the floor in between inside the building. So in the hall, it's a playing with staircase and ramps, going from the ground floor to the first floor, and from the first floor to the 2 levels of these meeting rooms. And painting all in red to warm a little bit this surrounding inside, but outside to be very calm with the gray color. And this volume seems to be floating above the entrance with only 3 little columns under and suspended to the top. Sometimes we do furniture, and this furniture has been built for the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. And for my shame, I was never coming inside the UNESCO building before doing the competition that I did for this building, and it was in 2001, and I was living in Paris since a long time. Because I was not really interested by concrete building, and for me it was an ordinary building in concrete. But I discovered when I came for the competition was to change the phone box in the main hall of the UNESCO headquarters. And so first I came in and I discovered that this building is absolutely incredible in the sensuality of you can feel the sensuousness of the concrete, how you can play with the concrete. You have in the main hall, you have columns, and these columns are sometimes starting to be round, transforming in rectangle, and finishing ovoid. The next one is starting ovoid, becoming round. So everyone is different. You have some flying canopies in front of the entrances of 15 square meters in concrete, very solid concrete, only on 2 little feet. You have inside the men's conference rooms is exactly, when you enter inside, it's exactly as you come inside under an Issey Miyake dress, but in concrete. This is split pleats in concrete. This is incredible. The ceiling, the walls, everywhere are pleated. This is really, really absolutely fantastic. So, for my shame, I discovered that. And I won the competition for the phone box because when I came in, I discovered that the phone box were this orange ball, this little ball of orange from the 60s, because the building was built in 57. And I was saying that we don't have to change it because it's very corresponding to the situation and the building. But the column which was supporting them was absolutely ugly. So I proposed just to change the column. And they said, oh, and the writer said, yes, it's very not expensive, so you can choose this architect. So I won the competition for the column of the phone box, and after that they asked me to propose furniture for the main hall. And I was thinking that I don't want to open a catalog. I prefer to design the furniture. So I designed first the counter, and they asked me only if I design it to respect the spirit of the building, but to be contemporary. So I decided to build the counter, which has been to be 11 meters long, to be in plastic. Because the 50s and the 60s, so the time of the building, was the heroic time of the plastic, and I wanted to build in the plastic. But I twisted the form to respect this joyness or this sensuality of the forms that I discovered in the building. And we chose together the colors. Because in the building we have the correspondence with a huge collection of modern art, and in the main hall we have on the back of this blue surface, seems to be blue but it's colorful, is a huge 50 square meters fresco by Picasso. And we have a huge tapestry by Le Corbusier in the same place. So we choose this orange color in reference to one color of the fresco by Picasso. And I have to propose seats. So I propose armchairs. And I propose to design them. And I was remembering the French designer Guy Paulin, who designed once in the 60s a snake. And these snakes were traveling through huge space in main museums, in big museums and hall. And I wanted to build a snake, but I wanted to design an armchair. So I started by designing a chauffeuse, this one, very simple, and a confidant with a double seat on both sides, and an armchair with connecting the seat and the back. And the section of all of them is exactly the same. So you can make an assemblage of them and create the snacks that you want through all the space. And we choose this color for the leather in reference to one of the colors in the tapestry by Le Corbusier. I have to propose a table, so I designed a table. It's a 3 meters long table in plastic again, with very thin legs, and the structure and the strength of the table is underneath, by the folding of the surface under. And a paper basket and an arms tray in aluminium, polished in folded aluminium with a specific polish to make the folds a little bit ambiguous to be seen. And after that, a gallery asked me a place to put things, and I propose a box, which is 1.5 meters long on the wall, and one part could be lifted up and the other one could be sliding. And inside I painted in orange. And journalists called that the bed of Dracula. So now it's called the bed of Dracula. And I like it. Why not? Dracula is one of my references. Okay, I know, it's Halloween. No, it's not, it's true. And I designed, and a company in Italy asked me to design door handle. So we played with pasta to try to find the way a woman hand and a man hand are different, and we can play with putting the fingers there, etc., etc. So we did this door handle. After that, we did all the collection, the bottoms, the sliding doors, etc. And Rome. Now we are building this museum, which is a contemporary art museum in Rome, under construction, and suppose and hope to be finished in 2 years. You know, in Rome it's very long. Everything we are in Rome, and it's Roman time. But we are in the city center, and really in the city center, a place inside nearby the old fortification, and by chance in a site where without archaeology, not too much. We find only one fountain from the 18th century, so not so much. And we have to build all of that behind this existing building. And this existing building has an entrance here, and we have to create another entrance here at this corner of the 2 streets. And between the 2 entrances, we have 4.5 meters of difference. This one is below and this one is up. And in between these 2 buildings, we have a courtyard covered by a glass roof. And I was, at the beginning of this competition, as this open competition, thinking about the city of Rome, and with the question of the square, the fountain, that you travel from one to the others when you travel through Rome. And we were asked in the program to have a garden, to maintain a garden on the ground floor. And I did only a little garden here after the entrance under this volume. And because in Rome, when you travel through the city, you don't see so many green. They are behind in the palazzo, behind the doors. But if you lift up your head and your eyes, you discover that on the terrace, on the buildings, on the top, there are the trees. Because every terrace on the top of the buildings are covered are used as gardens by the people, and they live on the top of the building. So by mixing the concept of having a square, a terrace, and a garden, we filled and we covered all the site by a roof, and this roof is a terrace, and this terrace is a square. And the square has a fountain in the middle, and the restaurant in front of the fountain. So this is the roof, the terrace. And because of this difference that I spoke before, we have just a ramp coming from this courtyard, going with a long length to the terrace. And because people were passing through the site before, directly to connect the 2 parts of the area, we propose with this ramp to pass and to go on this terrace, on the square, with this volume and glass inclined with water running on it. This is a fountain. And they could take a staircase here to come down to the street and cross the building without going inside the museum. So having a public space, and this public space is above the building on the roof. And because of these different levels, we have another ramp going down in the foyer below. And we dig all the site at this level of this new entrance. And we use, to the benefit of the project, the 12 meters difference behind the wall and the level below, to put all the program behind the walls, behind the facade that we have to maintain on this street and on this street. And we just had the right to cut the facade at the corner to show a little bit the new part. So behind the facade, we stay hidden behind the facade and discover a new world behind. And in the middle of the foyer, we will have this conference room under the fontaine, because the fontaine is a glass surface. So with this animation, you will discover everything that I speak about. Much more better. You know, it was supposed to be finished in 2005. We are in 2006, and now I say maybe 2008. But it's very fast for Italy, and it's very fast for my project. So this is a glass art cafe that we propose. This is the first images we sent for the first step of the competition. And this is a terrace with a glass volume in the middle, with this surface of 400 square meters where the water will be running on it. The art cafe, the cafe will be there, because in Rome we have cafe in the streets. And to come in, we will have to pass under the cafe, to pass through the garden between the trunks of the trees, with the leaves on the roof, and to come inside the foyer. And the foyer is with the fontaine above, which is belonging to the two public parts, the square above and the foyer under. The ticket room is a little bit like the furniture I did for the gallery, with one part lifting and the other part sliding, opening in the morning, with ramps all around at the different levels to travel through the space, to discover art, and to be more open to this in this building, to let people discovering the art, because for the general public it's not so easy to go to a museum, for a contemporary art museum, and we wanted to make the promenade and as a discovery, and to make them discovering art. Above the conference room we will have a lecture room under the fontaine, and this volume monolithic of the conference room is designed to seem to be a little bit destabilized, and we will dig the floor a little bit under to make this impression more strong. The toilets, I will speak about the toilets a little bit further. This is important. This is a main exhibition room with a ramp and a path rail running on the first floor to go to the roof, to have different point of view on the art exhibited, and the roof again. All the surfaces of the roof will be a little bit oblique, to make the people referring to their gravity, to make them a little bit in personal relation to the art everywhere. So all the surfaces will be a little bit inclined, not too much horizontal, and the texture under the feet will be gravel, sands, stones, etc. So the perception will be with your body directly. The toilets. I told you that I will speak about the toilets. The toilets are like a volume inserted in the building in one part. And I designed this toilet in reference to the movie of Playtime by Jacques Tati. This movie was built in 67, I think, and it is the movie which was expressing the ultra modernity we were dreaming about in the 60s. And this ultra modernity was cold, shiny, and absolutely unpersonal. But the characters are speaking a strange languages, mixing all the different languages together. So you don't understand what they are speaking about, but you understand the story of one day through this ultra-modern city. And this is really a very absolute modernity movie. And in one of the first sequences of the film, the character is entering an offices building, and he has to wait in a waiting room, and this waiting room is covered by steel everywhere, the floor, the ceiling, and the walls. And he is wearing leather soles under his shoes. So when you walk on it, it's very soundy. It's clink, clunk, clink, clunk, when we are leather on the steel. So I wanted to repeat this sound and to repeat this soundy, or not noisy, soundy space for toilets. Okay, but so it will be all in polished mirror polished stainless steel outside and inside volume, and on the both extremity of the main space, we will have mirrors on the both extremities. So the space will become infinite, and in the middle we will have this white volume with a decreasing landscape above. When you come out the toilet, you have to wash your hands. So you have to come to this volume and playing with your fingers and your hands above the volume. And with some tester, you will discover that the water will come from above up, and as soon as the water will come up, the volume will become red, because this ultra-modernity of Jacques Tati never went, and we are now a little bit more warm than this cold modernity. So I wanted to give that as a fire and water at the same time. And in some part of this decreasing landscape, you will find the soap, and another part, with by manipulating your hands, you will have the dryer. So it will be a place to visit too. So this is a competition we won in 2003 for the entrance pavilion of an international exhibition which was supposed to be in 2004 in Paris, nearby Paris. But it has been cancelled by the after the change of government. But it's important because this project was in a landscape, because it was my site for my pavilion was in this park, and I was supposed to destroy this little hill to build my pavilion. The pavilion, the thematic of the exhibition was the images, was about images. And my entrance pavilion was supposed to be about how to build images. And I was thinking about a black box, entering inside the hill to destroy it and rebuild it after by textile and steel structure. So by compressing, to destroy the hill with the box going in, you have to compress and to transform and to stress the curved line of the hill, and I call that to landscape bondage. The bondage is this way of wearing for women from the 18th and the 19th century, when they were wearing corset. And when you wear corset, you have to make it as tight as possible to be very elegant. The more you tight the breast, the more you compress the flesh of the body, the more above and down the flesh is relaxing in a smooth curve. So I'm playing with that idea of compressing and relaxing the flesh of the heel in a way, or the curves of the wheel, by having this textile structure to come inside the pavilion by going under this structure, this textile, and coming inside the box at the end. But it has been cancelled. And this one was here. It was the ID competition about the site nearby the Schindler House. And maybe you know this question about playing with this new housing, not being a high building, but a more calm building, not to enclose the Schindler House which has now already 2 condominiums on the both sides, and we will have, maybe it's built already now, the 3rd condominium on the other side. And I propose this way of playing with the ground to insert the flats as little houses in continuous 3 rows inside the ground, and to have the surface of the top built as a garden, covered by the garden, and to leave all that at the same level as the Schindler house. This is a house that I'm building now in China, in Nanjing. This is a sort of a collection, a sort of an exhibition around a lake. We are 20 architects building a house around this lake outside the city of Nanjing. And the program is to build a house of between 400 and 500 square meters, and with 4 or 5 bedrooms. We came all together in the site in 2003 and did a lottery to decide which site we have. So I received the number 10, and this number 10 is that one. It's a slopey one, very slopey one, under trees, filled with trees. And it's a rocky one. So I started to think that I wanted that people who will rent this house will have an experiment of space in each bedroom. And each bedroom will become a sort of a rock on the slope. So I came back to the office and we built a model of the site, and I said we will build the Rolling Stones house. So this house, this is a Rolling Stones because every bedroom is a rock, is a stone, and every stone is a space. So we have here a tower of 11 meters high. We have a sunken. We have a horn, we have a S-suite, and we have a little belvedere here, with a main space in between. Some bedrooms are connected to the space, and some not. This one is isolated, you have to come out, and this one is isolated also, but you come in by taking this path rail at the first level inside this room. And this tower is a game. This is an empty space of 11 meters high, covered at the top by a roof terrace. And when you come inside the bedroom, at the first level, you are going by this path rail. You come in and you have a remote control. But you discover that you have only a path rail, and your path rail is going to the end. And at the end, you have a little window, but you can't go out. The path rail is going out, but not you. And you have a staircase hanging on one wall, and you have a strange panels on this wall. But you don't have anything else. When you activate the remote control, one part of this wall is unfolded and connected to this, and this fold is going to your path rail, so you can cross the space at the first level, enter inside the wall, and with 2 staircases, one going down to have the toilets, and the other one going up. To go out, you have to activate again the remote control, and one big part of the wall is unfolded. You have the bedroom, the bed, and another path rail going to the staircase which was above you. So you go up, and you have to activate another button again. Another path rail is coming, and you discover your bathtub inside the wall. To use it, you have to push another button and to have the wall sliding up to open the space of the bathtub to the space of the tower. And the staircase is going to the rooftop, and the rooftop you can't see outside. You just see to the sky because the walls are going up above. So this is an enclosed vertical space with a play inside to unfold successively the different elements of your bedroom. This is some renderings. We are in a very dark, shadow site because we are under trees, and it's very warm and very humid. So I wanted to make it darker, and it's why I proposed to build it in dark granite, outside and inside, and to have only some surfaces in glass, looking and facing to the lake, to be more experimental, with a little swimming pool on one part of the site. It's supposed to be finished next year at the beginning. This is a housing that I'm doing in Florence, in Italy. This is a site in between the airport of Florence and the city center, which is 15 minutes of time going from the airport to the city center. And in between we have a site which was before Fiat, a site for this factory Fiat, for the cars. And Fiat decided to destroy the factory and to urbanize the site for to give to the city a new area. So it's very large, and it's starting to be developed 15 years ago on a master plan by Rob Creer. So Rob Creer was doing the regulation and all the rules for this site, with following the most conservative architecture that you can imagine, with vertical windows, with roof, etc., with arcades on the street, etc. So, and they started by building a bank, which is a tower of quite absolutely postmodernist collage, something not very good. They have a university on the site, and they started by building housing. So Rob Creer left the client once, and he asked to Francesco Dalco, the editor-in-chief of Casabella, to help him to choose the architects. So he chooses some young architects from Italy to build the housing at the beginning, and they were starting to play with the regulation of Rob Creer. And at the end, only 3 plots were left. And they decided to, along the park, because in the middle of the site we will have a big park. And they decided to give that one to Zaha Hadid, one to me, and one to Carmen Pinos. So the 3 ladies on the park. And we were supposed to follow, and we have to follow the regulation also. And believe me, this building is following the regulation of Rob Creer for the urban planning. So instead of having arcades, I did a cantilever of the building above this street. This is the regulation of following exactly the regulation of the roof. It was supposed to be only 2 slopes, but I did a lot, but exactly the same slope and the same height and etc. as it is. It was forbidden to have balconies, but I wanted, because it's a sunny place, so I wanted that people will have the outside space of their flats. But I proposed to cover the balconies with this grid, and to plant specific plants which are growing red, flowering red, because we were supposed to have bricks. So I was thinking that maybe only the plants could be red, and it's enough to be following the regulation. So, and in the winter it could be more open, and in the summer it will provide shadow to the balconies. So, and I received the building permit, and it will be built. So this and the other part of the building are covered with steel in red. So bricks are red. So I did. When I came for the first time on the site, there was a big tree in the middle of the site, and I was thinking that to turn around the tree to keep it. But when I came for the first time to propose my project, I discovered that they had destroyed the tree. So I maintained the courtyard, the open U system, and I replant some trees now. With playing with the circulation and the open corridors to connect the different levels and the flats on the both sides. This is a flat in Beijing that I did for the first exhibition in 2004 for architecture. And we were, as for the houses in Nanjing, we were 10 architects in the same building, in the same tower under construction, to do the interior design of a flat. And we had exactly the same flat, the same structure, with the same walls in concrete, the same places for the bathroom and the kitchen, etc. And after building all the 10 flats, at the opening, going from one flat to the other one, it was absolutely different spaces, different impression of space, and we couldn't believe that it was exactly the same. So I called it flat unlimited, because I wanted to open as maximum as possible. This tower were supposed to have no open windows because it's air conditioning, and because outside is very dusty, and so it was forbidden. So I wanted to open it as maximum without opening the window, to push the limit of the face of the building, and to have surfaces going out. So this orange diagonal surface is going out here without opening and going by physically, but it's pushing the surface outside, and at the opposite again. So I opened all the spaces, and I didn't enclose anything except with the bed and the bathtub in the same space, but a sofa and TV outside. On the left, the bed and the bath, and on the right, on the other side of the glass, so the table and the sofa. This is another museum of which was supposed to be built, but it has been cancelled some months ago, and it's for a private collector in south of Austria. Nearby is Slovenia, 6 kilometers from Slovenia. This is a very, very beautiful site, a very beautiful place. It's a valley surrounded by mountains, little mountains, with a village and a castle at the opposite of the valley. And at the opposite of this site, this is the site of the museum. In between them, the village, surrounding by a valley. And this site is very strange because this is like a plateau lift up above the ground, with 30 meters of decreasing here to the river, 10 meters to the fields, and 7 meters here to the road. When I came for the first time on the site here, I was thinking that I couldn't compete with an object with the castle here at the opposite of the valley. And when I came to the castle, on the terrace in front of the castle, I was looking above the village to the site. And I was thinking that the collector, the owner of the castle, and who wants to build this museum, could have a privilege to see and to look through the building, to look at the collection. So to make a visual link between the castle and the museum. So I came back and I built the model of the site, and we started by lift up the different curves line of the site and inserting under the program of the museum without designing a building, without designing a volume, but just pushing the lines above and inserting under the program and the different rooms. And we did this model for the competition, because everything was supposed to be continuous. And this is the site around, with the village on the back, the castle, and the Slovenia mountains on the very back. And the line of the museum will have been the same, this transformation of the surface of the plateau. So again, when I come back to this plan, if you look, this curve was at the beginning very smooth, and I put in the perspective, the point of the perspective from the castle here, and distorting the curved line to make another sort of bondage of the landscape to show the entrance of the museum. And the site and the museum will have been the same continuous surface, with walking above, and under the surface, a curved line will be the same in the ceiling, with a ramp on the border of the site, open to the view to the valley and to the castle, to the village and to the castle, but facing to the south. So to protect, we built a wall behind to make the exhibition room behind the wall, and to have this long promenade, slowly the valley to enter inside the museum. Above, another ramp to go to the temporary exhibition room on the first floor. And at the end, all the lines will be connected on a place with, inside the ground, a little point of light, of natural light, as a little atrium. We designed two restaurants in Paris, one in black with a wall filled with the bottles of wine, and the red one with a shelves and library of wines from Italy. This is a museum of another museum that I'm doing now in Brittany. After the first bank I did 15 years ago, I come back to this same place to build this museum in Rennes, in Brittany. And we are in France, and in France the regulation and the master plan are much more strict, and we have to fill the site. We have to do a parallelepiped. We have the regulation for the height, everything, and the roof, etc. So it's much more strictly followed than in Italy. When I played with the regulation in Florence, the mayor said, "Okay, you can do that if you want." But in France, it's impossible, and it's prohibited. So, but the question on this site was, what was interesting, it was this piece of art, which is in front of the building. This is a sort of a collection of columns, 72 columns of 4.5 meters height, which have been done by this abstract artist woman from France. I forgot his name. I will tell you when I will remind. But this is a very huge piece of art, and this is very strong, and it was supposed to be on the site before the building. So we have to take care of this structure, of this sculpture, to design the project. So I propose to have a very slight facade, a very smooth facade, a very simple facade in front of this piece of art, and just to have the line in the middle of the facade that's exactly the same height than these 4.5 meters of these columns, these granite dark columns. And to show with this light the difference between the main entrance hall and the exhibition room above, to cover the exhibition room with a black steel, and to cover the main hall with black glass. And in the night it will become transparent. So in the day it will be absolutely a black facade, and in the night it will become a red light, a red lantern with the light inside and the ceiling above the entrance with the red color and the conference room inside. And because this is a very strict volume, I wanted to do something, and I break the volume with a diagonal. And this diagonal is cutting all the volume and all the height of the volume and all the length, with going down to the storage room 11 meters below. And when you come inside, you will just facing the back of the conference room, and you have to turn around to go and to pass in between the glass facade and the volume to go to the extremity of the hall. And you start to travel through this little narrow atrium, very vertical and very long, with ramps to connect and to go to the different levels of these exhibition rooms and to the library and to the administration on the top. And it will start to be built next year. This one was a competition that I lost for a lycée in Luxembourg. We were supposed to design a park and to design a lycée, to insert the lycée in the park, and I proposed to design the lycée and the park at the same, to fold the surface of the park and to fold the cover and the roof of the lycée, to insert the lycée inside the park, to have the two levels below, and to be just on the same level with the roof as the park. But under it's a normal system of classrooms along a long corridor, a long atrium. This was a competition that I did at the end of last year for the new extension of the council of the region, the Calabria region in south of Italy, in Reggio. And they stopped the competition. We were just two finalists, so it never happens. I proposed to have 2 rows of offices connected by an atrium, and this atrium will be covered by a glass cascade. And under that, we will have some passerelles, ramps, and staircase with objects suspended to let people meeting together between their travels through between the different services, because it's an administrative building, and usually the people are not speaking together; they are just meet in the lift. And I propose to make them meeting in the space in the middle, because in Italy they start by drinking coffee, smoking, and speaking together, and start to work at 11. You know, so they have to have a place to speak together. This was an opera house that I proposed for a competition in Linz in Austria, with a sort of another glass cascade with like a jewelry in the middle, which is the opera space, and the music room outside, with a very huge problem of crossing this crossroads, for going from the train station, the other one from the entrance of the city, the other one to go to the center, and in between trains, trams, cars, buses, etc. So we have to resolve this question of how to pass through this crossroad. And I propose to have a huge passerelle coming above and going inside the opera house from the first level and going down to enter inside the foyer, a huge foyer, to be a collective and a public space for the city. And when we will have gum from the first floor, and under this project now, this program, less and less only for opera. There are more and more mixed-used program with shops, restaurants, cafeteria, a place and a square for the city. So I propose to increase the size of this place to have a public space in this crossroad. But they choose a more normal square building than mine. This was a competition that we did in Lyon, in France, for 2 projects. And we have to propose 2 projects, one for the renovation of one of this building with an extension, and another one, a new one. This is in the peninsula between the 2 rivers of Lyon, which are Rhône and Saône. And in between, we have the peninsula. This peninsula was industrial. It was the harbor of Lyon. And on this harbor, we still have some docks, some buildings. And this one was a building for salt, and with the boat coming just on the bank. And we have still on the river bank the big, huge cranes, steel cranes, which are very huge and beautiful structure. So I propose for the extension of this one to renovate the building and to have as an extension a sort of a box, and from this box emerging a sort of a crane coming like a snake above the building, like that, with a restaurant as a belvedere on the top. And they said that it's too much for a restaurant and it's maybe a bit too expensive. But I want the other one. This was the one, there was a pavilion, supposed to be called a pavilion. At the end of this bank, just at some meters from the new building by Copy-Melblau, the Musée des Confluences, at the extremity of the peninsula, before the park. And I propose to have 2 boxes, seeming to be perpendicular, but not perpendicular, absolutely not, just before being perpendicular, to be a little bit ambiguous, to have one transparent and the other one more dark, to be in cantilever to the river, and to have we were asked to work with an artist, and I worked with Felice Varini, who is a Swiss artist who is working a lot with the question of point of view, and I asked him to work with me and to transform the perception of my facades of the 2 buildings. So, and he proposed to me to take pictures of the site for the other one. He proposed to take pictures of the site before the building and to cover the facade with the continuity of the site, but in black and white. And for the other one, he proposed to take photos from the virtual points above the building on the four directions to the city, and to replace this point of view, these photos, on the four facades. So you can, when you will come to the building, you will have in front of you the view from your back. So playing with this type of point of view. And I proposed to have to build this little tower, which was not asking to me, but to have a sort of a belvedere above the site, because this peninsula is under development and it's a huge, really huge transformation for the city. So it's a place to look at and to watch that, and at the same time to leisure with a restaurant and a bar. But it's just a balloon, and this balloon is an inflatable balloon sphere on the top of this column. And because we are at the connection between the two rivers, and on the both sides we have a hill, and on the other side we have the city, it's a sort of a corridor of wind. So this inflatable balloon on the top, connected just to the different floors inside, will be not maintaining as a sphere, but will be a little bit moving because of the wind inside this corridor. At the beginning they were thinking, okay, this is crazy, but now they said, okay, we will build it. So why not? This is a pavilion, a little cabin that I was supposed to build in Croatia, in Bratislava, just along the river Danube. It was asked by an art gallery who wanted to have 4 little cabins, and they asked one to Peter Cook, one to me, and one Polish, one Swedish, and one Slovakian architect. So I proposed, because this river Danube is really a line crossing something like 9 or 10 European countries, and it was a frontier between the east and the west, between the Orient and Occident in the history. And I was thinking, and we have to build this cabin on the river. So I proposed to do a teepee, because for me a teepee is a place where we speak about peace. And this place, the river Danube, is a place to speak about peace. And I proposed not to have an unclosed teepee, but an open teepee. So it could be unfold to be opened. But it doesn't be built. So when I was asked in Shanghai to build an information center at the entrance of a huge site of 33 hectares for exhibiting furniture, to build an information center for 1,500 square meters, I proposed the teepee. And this teepee will be huge than the former one. And this will be this information center. And I started by showing you the installation that we did in Grenoble, and I called it Hypertension. And I built this one in New York in 2004, and I called it Central Hypertension. Why? Because I was explaining that we were working a lot about this hypertension in the space, that tension inside the space to compress and to dilate and to make the body, to feel the body moving inside the space by the way you play with the walls. But now we are playing more and more with the question of the senses of the body, not only with the impression of the space, but the different senses with the surface and the walls again. So I propose in this artist space gallery, which is a little space, to build this little cabinet, to make the floor inclined in oblique, and to enter by the Z way. And inside the cabinet, all the different surfaces of the walls are never rectangular and never vertical. One half are painted in white and the other one are covered with a mirror. And by having projection on the white surface, reflecting in the mirror on the other side, and because of this distortion of the walls, I created new spaces that didn't exist. This space in between, in the middle, it doesn't exist. This is a reflection of the other side, and distorting the perception of the projection, and transforming the perception of the space. So I said that it's virtual space, but in real. So thank you. This is the end.